If you search for Stevie Nicks today, the story the internet wants to tell you is one of tragedy. It's a narrative spun from whispers and shadows, painting a portrait of a rock and roll queen, now 77 years old, living out her days in quiet, heartbreaking solitude. They'll show you pictures of a woman weathered by time and tell you she's haunted by the ghosts of her past, the great loves, the devastating losses, the dizzying highs, and the crushing lows. It's a compelling story, crafted for clicks, and steeped in a melancholy that feels almost poetic. It's the story of the gold dust woman, finally faded to gray dot. It's a powerful narrative, and for a moment, it's almost easy to believe. But it's not the true one. The internet loves a tragedy, but Stevie Nicks was never one for sad endings. The real tragedy isn't the life she lived. The real tragedy is how profoundly wrong they are about the life she is living right now. In reality, at an age when most have long since retired, she is selling out arenas, commanding stages with the same fire that made her a legend, and proving, night after night, that the magic isn't a memory. It's a vital, living, breathing force. This is the story not of a victim of time, but of a woman who has made time her accomplice. To understand the fiction, you have to understand the facts it was built on. The legend of Stevie Nicks is a tapestry woven from threads of genuine pain and profound struggle. Her life story has all the elements of a grand, gothic romance, a story of faded love, immense fame, staggering excess, and heartbreaking loss. It's a story so dramatic that it often overshadows the woman at its center, turning her into a caricature of the heartbroken mystic. The tale begins, as it so often does, with a boy, Lindsey Buckingham. They met in high school, a connection of pure, adolescent creative sparks. He was a brilliant guitarist. She was a burgeoning poet with a voice that seemed to channel something ancient and otherworldly. Together, they were Buckingham Nicks, chasing a dream in the hazy sunshine of early 1970s California. They were lovers, musical partners, and utterly broke. They poured every ounce of their youth and their love into their music. Their 1973 self-titled album, Buckingham Nicks, was their masterpiece, and the album cover itself became iconic. Two young, beautiful artists, nude and vulnerable, offering their creation to the world, but the world didn't seem to want it. The album was a commercial failure, and their label dropped them almost immediately. The dream was dying. Stevie took jobs as a waitress and a house cleaner just to keep them afloat, to keep the music alive. It was a period of intense struggle that would forge the steel in her soul, but also create the first cracks in their foundation. Then, on New Year's Eve of 1974, the phone call came that changed everything. Mick Fleetwood, the towering drummer of Fleetwood Mac, was looking for a new guitarist. He'd heard Buckingham's work and wanted him in, but Lindsey delivered an ultimatum that would alter music history. Stevie comes with me. We are a package deal. Reluctantly, the band agreed. Stevie Nicks, the cleaning lady with poems in her pocket, was now in one of the biggest bands in the world. What followed was a whirlwind of success. The first album with the new lineup, 1975's Fleetwood Mac, was a smash hit, but it was the follow-up, Rumours, that would become their magnum opus and the crucible where the tragic myth of Stevie Nicks was forged. The album was recorded in a storm of emotional chaos. By the time they entered the studio, the two couples in the band had imploded. John and Christine McVie were in the middle of a bitter divorce. Mick Fleetwood had discovered his own wife was having an affair, and, most famously, Stevie and Lindsey's long, tortured love affair had finally, painfully, ended. The studio became a war zone of silent treatments and passive-aggressive songwriting. They were forced to create music about the very people who were breaking their hearts. Christine wrote, "You make loving fun" about her new boyfriend. The band's lighting director and a heartbroken John McVie had to play the bass line. Lindsey wrote the accusatory, "Go Your Own Way" about Stevie, a song she had to sing backup on every single night. And Stevie, in her corner, wrote Dreams. In about 10 minutes, she channeled her pain into what would become Fleetwood Mac's only #1 single in the US. The lyrics were a direct, elegant response to Lindsey's anger. "Now here you go again. You say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down?" It was pure artistic alchemy, turning agony into universal truth. But it came at a cost. The band was fueled by unimaginable amounts of cocaine, which only amplified the turmoil. The success of Rumours trapped them, forcing them to relive their breakups on stage for decades. This period cemented the image of Stevie Nicks as the queen of rock and roll, but also as its heartbroken mystic. Her solo career, which kicked off with the triumphant 1981 album Belladonna, only deepened this persona. Songs like Edge of 17 were anthems of strength, but the vulnerability was always there. Behind the scenes, the pressure was taking a severe toll. The drug use of the Rumours era had spiraled into a crippling cocaine addiction that nearly killed her. A doctor famously warned her that her next line could cause a brain hemorrhage. After a successful stint at the Betty Ford Center in 1986, she was prescribed Klonopin to help her cope. What was meant to be a temporary aid became an 8-year nightmare that she said stole her creativity, her energy, and her personality, leaving her a shadow of her former self. Yet, even that struggle isn't the deepest cut in the tragic narrative. That belongs to her best friend, Robin Snyder Anderson. When Robin was diagnosed with leukemia, Stevie was by her side. As Robin's health declined, her greatest fear was that her newborn son, Matthew, would grow up without a mother. Stevie promised she would look after him. Just days after Fleetwood Mac's Mirage album hit #1, Robin passed away. Consumed by a grief so profound it bordered on madness, Stevie married Robin's widower, Kim Anderson. It was a union, born not of love, but of a shared, unbearable sorrow. The marriage lasted only 3 months. The experience left a permanent scar, a loss so deep it has echoed through her music ever since. These are the pillars of the tragic myth: doomed love, public heartbreak, suffocating fame, addiction, and devastating loss. It's a compelling story, and for years, it has been the dominant story told about her. But that's where the story the internet tells you usually ends. It leaves her there, a solitary figure surrounded by ghosts, a tragic queen reigning over an empire of memories. It's a story frozen in time, defined by the struggles of the 70s and 80s. But the real story didn't end there, not even close. The real tragedy isn't in her past. The real tragedy is missing the power, the resilience, and the sheer force of will that defines her present. The real tragedy is ignoring the truth of who Stevie Nicks is today, at 77 years old, because the woman living that life isn't a victim. She's a vanguard. She's not fading away. She is burning brighter than ever. To see the real Stevie Nicks in 2025, you don't look at old photographs. You look at the concert listings for the biggest arenas in the country. You look at places like the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and arenas in Detroit, Charlotte, and Sacramento. Because that's where she is. Not just performing, but headlining. At an age when her peers are either retired or on small nostalgia tours, Stevie Nicks is still a marquee draw, filling 20,000-seat venues on her own. Her resilience and demand were on full display in the summer of 2025. After a series of co-headlining, stadium shows with Billy Joel were canceled due to his health issues. What did Stevie do? She didn't take a break. She immediately added a string of her own solo arena dates to the tour. On June 16, 2025, new shows were still being added to meet the incredible demand. This isn't a woman living a quiet, heartbreaking life. This is a general on the battlefield of rock and roll, still leading the charge. There's no hint of stopping. The message is simple. The show goes on. This isn't the action of a fragile, tragic figure. This is the grit of a seasoned professional who refuses to be sidelined. This strength isn't just physical, it's professional and financial. While the myth focuses on her emotional vulnerability, it ignores her incredible business acumen. In 2020, Stevie Nicks sold a majority stake in her publishing catalog to Primary Wave for a reported $100 million. This wasn't selling out. It was a savvy CEO securing her future and ensuring her life's work would be protected for generations. She took control of her own story and its financial destiny. Her status as an icon isn't just nostalgia, it's actively celebrated. In 2019, she became the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once with Fleetwood Mac in 1998, and again for her monumental solo career. While others have followed, she was the one who broke that glass ceiling, proving she was never just the girl in the band, she was a singular force. The ultimate rebuttal to the tragic narrative, however, is her enduring and ever-expanding influence. The Stevie Nicks aesthetic, the shawls, the boots, the mystical vibe is more potent than ever. But her influence runs far deeper than fashion. You can hear her DNA in the confessional songwriting of Taylor Swift, in the ethereal power of Florence Welch, and in the rock and roll swagger of Harry Styles, who has called her a hero and performed with her multiple times. She is not a relic. She is a foundational text for a new generation of artists who see in her not a tragic figure, but the ultimate survivor